Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is June 19th, 2023. We are in the Old Testament today. We're going to read from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse 1 to chapter 22, verse 12. All right, so what's going on here? Well, we start off with a really interesting law commandment from the Lord that if you come across a dead body and it looks like it's been murdered, what happens? You don't know who did it. We don't know really who it was done to. So an atonement has to be made because someone's been murdered, but there's no one to make the atonement. So you find the nearest town, you get the priests from there, and they make the sacrifice. They sacrifice a heifer, and they wash their hands. Well, what does that signify? Well, it signifies they're innocent of the crime, but they're making the sacrifice. We talked about sacrificing earlier in the Old Testament, that it's a pointer to Jesus. So again, we added a little bit more to that pointer. We've got an atonement for the sins, substitution. We're not having to we're not having to sacrifice ourselves. We're sacrificing this innocent animal in our place. And here the sacrifice is being made by an innocent party. So we're getting closer and closer to Jesus with these sacrifices. We move from there and we talk about female captives. And again, we talked, I think, yesterday about, oh, God is bloodthirsty, people want to say, but you know what? Here's an example that kind of contradicts that. Now, people go to war and they would rape and pillage people, and God is saying, no, that's not what I want you to do. Yes, these 6 nations in Palestine that I'm using you to punish, wipe them out. But if you go fight somebody else and you take women captives, well, you got to treat them decently. I mean, you don't get to go rape them. If you want to have intercourse with them, you're going to have to marry them. And not only that, if you marry them, they're going to have 30 days that they're going to purify themselves and mourn for their losses. And then if you decide you don't want to marry them after that, well, you got to divorce them. You got to take care of them after that. So again, this far from a bloodthirsty God, he's giving them rules that no other nation at that time is under, or even would consider that, hey, you know what? If I take someone captive, what do you mean? I got to actually treat them decently, and I have to take care of them? God says yes. Talking about firstborn inheritance rights, and specifically if I married someone and then I marry someone else and I have children by both of them, you can't make the children of the second wife over the first wife. Now, that's one of those sections the Bible never specifically says you're not allowed to have more than one wife, but everything implies one wife is the way to go. Whenever you see someone with 2 wives, usually there's strife involved. They're not happy. You have one wife, much nicer. Now, sometimes God has elevated one over another, or something. I will say Israel would elevate Jacob. That would be wrong, because he elevated him as a favorite son of the favorite wife. Lots of stress. When it came time to bless Jacob's sons, he blessed the younger over the older, not out of favoritism, but out of that's what needed to happen. So sometimes God will elevate somebody over somebody else. Elevated Jacob over Esau. Wasn't playing favorites. It was, you know what, Esau, you're going down the wrong path. Jacob is not. So more or less, you don't want to play favorites. Now, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have the rebellious son, which comes next, which, you know what, he just doesn't care about his parents. He wants to go his own way, and they're like, hey, you know what? You disown him. Actually, you kill him. So I guess disowning would be pretty much lenient. So we get some other miscellaneous laws to finish this out. Hanging on a tree. And then we see that come back in the New Testament. When they talk about Jesus and saying he died as a cursed person, he was hung on a tree. They're not saying that they hung him on the tree to kill them necessarily, but that was a sign to everyone. Would you look up and you'd see the corpse hanging in the tree, that person was really evil. But you had to take him down and bury him at night, which is what we saw happen at the crucifixion. Talking about love your brother as you love yourself. And talking about his possessions, he's got an ox, and you find his ox wandering around. Not necessarily that finders keepers that we like to do now, but hey, that's my neighbor's ox. You know what? I can just ignore it and say that's his ox, and he'll go back on his own. If I take him in, I'm going to have to feed him, and I'm going to clothe him, and that's going to cost me. No, you go and you get the ox, and you make sure the ox is safe. And when your neighbor comes, here's your ox back. And why would you do that? Because you would want him to do the same to you. So an example of that, and we get a couple examples of that, and then it ends with a few more little miscellaneous laws. Again, we're preparing this second generation to go into the promised land. They didn't get all this originally. They're getting it again from Moses, and they're getting just a little bit of extra, a little more clarification, a little more details added to it. So let's go ahead and we're going to read this section. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 1 to 22:12. If anything is found slain, lying in the field in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess, and it is not known who killed him, then your elders and your judges shall go out and measure the distance from the slain man to the surrounding cities. And it shall be that the elders of the city nearest to the slain man will take a heifer which has not been worked, and which is not pulled with a yoke. The elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with flowing water, which is neither plowed nor sown, and they shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. Then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to bless in the name of the Lord. By their word every controversy and every assault shall be settled. And all the elders of that city nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. Then they shall answer and say, Our hands have not shed this blood, nor have our eyes seen it. Provided atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed. And do not lay innocent blood to the charge of your people Israel. And atonement shall be provided on their behalf for the blood. So you shall put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. When you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God delivers them into your hand, and you take them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you desire her, and would take her for your wife, then you shall bring her home to your house, and she shall shave her head, and trim her nails. She shall put off the clothes of her captivity, remain in your house, and mourn her father and her mother a full month. After that you may go in to her, and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. And it shall be, if you have no delight in her, then you shall set her free, but you certainly shall not sell her for money. You shall not treat her brutally, because you have humbled her. If a man has two wives, one loved and the other unloved, and they have borne him children, both the loved and the unloved, and if the firstborn son is of her who is unloved, then it shall be on the day he bequeaths his possessions to his sons that he must not bestow firstborn status on the son of the loved wife in preference to the son of the unloved, the true firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. If a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and who, when they have chastened him and will not heed them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of the city, to the gate of his city, and they shall say to the elders of his city, This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his city shall stone him to death with stones. So you shall put away the evil from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. If a man has committed a sin deserving of death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain overnight on the tree, but you shall surely bury him that day, so that you do not defile the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. For he who is hanged is accursed of God. You shall not see your brother's ox or his sheep going astray, and hide yourself from them. You shall certainly bring them back to your brother, and if your brother is not near you, or if you don't know him, then you shall bring it to your own house, and it shall remain with you until your brother seeks it. Then you shall restore it to him. You shall do the same with his donkey, and so shall you do with his garment, with any lost thing of your brother's which he has lost and you have found. You shall do likewise. You must not hide yourself. You shall not see your brother's donkey or his ox fall down along the road, and hide yourself from them. You shall surely help lift them up again. A woman shall not wear anything that pertains to a man, nor shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all who do so are an abomination to the Lord your God. If a bird's nest happens to be before you along the way in any tree or in the ground, with the young ones or eggs, with the mother sitting on the young or on the eggs, you shall not take the mother with the young. You shall surely let the mother go and take the young for yourself, that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days. When you build a new house, then you shall make a parapet for your roof, that you may not bring guilt of bloodshed on your household if anyone falls from it. You shall not sow your vineyard with different kinds of seed, lest the yield of the seed which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled. You shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together. You shall not wear a garment of different sorts, such as wool and linen mixed together. You shall make tassels on the four corners of the clothing with which you cover yourself. May God bless the reading of his word, and may God bless you. Bye.